Hey everyone, this is Justin from Who Is Like You Ministries, and welcome back to another video. Now this week, I'm doing a video that I haven't done in a while. It's part of my Is It Biblical series, where I go through different Bible movies that have been made and see how close to the actual Bible story they are. And this time, this video, I'm having my wife Kaylin join me. You might recognize her from our hiking videos.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited. I'm always on, he closes the door when he does these in our office, so I'm always on the other side of the door, kind of wondering what's going on. So this is really cool. I'm going to bring the fun. He brings the facts.
So what we're doing this week is the Samson movie that comes from Judges chapters 13 through 16. Now, I'll just let you guys know up front, I'm not going to touch on if the skin color of the actors is correct. To be honest, I don't really care about that. Even though we know what color the people would have been, I'm just not even going to mess with that because it's a movie. And if they have a white person playing Samson or a black person or an Asian person, it really doesn't matter. I'm not going to touch that. We're just going to look at if the movie itself is close to the biblical stories. All right, so let's go.
Where's Samson?
He will be here.
So something we both just kind of noticed is in Judges 13, it starts out with Samson's birth, the angel coming to his mother and saying you're going to have a son, don't do this. I think it's don't drink wine, don't drink beer.
Because he was going to be a Nazarite.
Exactly. So it's interesting that the movie clearly starting out with Samson as an adult. I don't know if what's happening right now is happening at the same time while him and this other guy are off taking food or whatever, but it's interesting that they don't start off with what the story starts out with, which is the prophecy of his birth.
Right, and I think the movie mentioned it in the first 5 minutes or so and when it's introducing the movie, but overall I don't think they mention his birth or the prophecy or the angel or anything at all.
Again, it doesn't mention how they got the prophecy or, why they're thinking that. So,
yeah, maybe it'll mention it a little bit later, so we'll just keep watching and see.
The Philistines have a new fighter, welcome from Egypt. He can't be beaten. He mocks our people and he mocks our God. But you can show him.
Samson's not interested. Our father's given us...
So this fighter from Egypt, Bakum, I think they said, he doesn't appear in Judges at all. I can't think of one single verse that mentions that the Philistines had an Egyptian challenger that would eventually go on to fight Samson.
And this is interesting. It seems like they're bringing in the fighter to add some action to kind of give some sense of morality and protection for the character of Samson. Judges 13 through 16 is a fairly violent section. I mean, there's all kinds of action, if you will, and, for lack of a better word, in terms of entertainment, excitement that happens throughout the story of Samson. So I think it's interesting that they're choosing to add something that's not accurate into the movie to make it more exciting when I don't think it's needed. So I think it's really just to reinforce, it's just to make the audience like Samson, I think.
They do that with Bible stories a lot. They add more action that's already in there, than it's already in there, and I don't know if it's needed.
Well, also that, I think this is purely to reinforce a non-biblical audience's view of Samson because this is made by PureFlix, and we were talking about how we might not have a lot of comments because PureFlix is a Christian-based entertainment organization.
So we might have to get nitpicky.
Yeah, we might have to get nitpicky, which is where this is coming from. But if somebody who knows nothing about the Bible or is not as well read in Judges in particular, I think this is purely here to make them like Samson. But I don't think it's needed. I think they could have just used the story as it was.
2 bags of silver, then.
Samson, Father, will be furious. Brother, are you listening?
10 to 1!
Also, by the way, I don't I don't remember the books ever mentioning that Samson had a brother. He very well might have, but I don't recall him ever being a part of the story.
Well, I know at the end of the story of Samson, after everything that's going to happen in this movie happens, it talks about how his mother and brothers or father and brothers come. So they are briefly hinted at the very, very end of the story, but they do not have an active role. The brother in this story seems to be his confidant. It almost seems like a hero is always better when they have a sidekick. So that's more than... Notice he hasn't been named. I don't think he has a name.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think they've called him anything. So he's more than likely made up as a sidekick to Samson. His moral conscience is probably what it's going to be. So you, the audience, knows, what Samson should be doing as opposed to what he is doing.
You must see gods for what they are. They are symbols. They have no power. To the common man, they provide something bigger. To us, they are a means of control.
In almost every single movie that I've ever seen that has some sort of god in it, whether it be Troy, whether it be this movie, whether it be almost any of them that have a god or god. Actually, the Moses movie with Christian Bale that I reviewed a while back was the same way, talking about how there's always characters that don't believe in any gods at all, even though the world that surrounds these movies were very theocratic and God was in everything, whatever God it was. But it always amuses me that there's always some big character, protagonist, antagonist, whoever, that doesn't believe in the gods and thinks they're just silly superstitions that people believe in, when we know for a fact that he, being the king of Philistine, would have believed in Dagon, his god, and then whoever else would believe in their gods as well.
Even more so than the common people, right? I mean, the monarchs of the time would have more than likely been the most devout. So it is interesting that they're using Billy Zane's character, the king, to demonstrate some sort of, like Justin said, like a disbelief or, higher knowledge than his subjects, including his son, who he thinks is naive, I think, at this point.
There is no judge.
You carry the anointing.
Well, I'm not ready.
We're never ready.
In a lot of movies like this, there's always that character that doesn't want to be what he's supposed to be. Samson was one of the judges. He judged for 20 years, and I know this movie has to have some sort of battle within Samson's head where he's not ready to be a judge, even though God calls him to be one. But that's really just made up for the movie. In the Bible, it really doesn't make a mention of doubts or what he thinks about being a judge. It's just Samson is born and then he becomes a judge.
And also, I think it's interesting that, even the PureFlix in particular, when we mentioned that they're a Christian organization, I think it's interesting that they're doing classic Hollywood movie totes again for pure entertainment. Like Justin said, he's having an internal reservation against what he wants versus what his destiny is. Every hero in every character, whether it's Tony Stark in Iron Man or Samson from the Bible, if you're looking for pure entertainment, they're trying to resonate Samson's character with you, a person who has responsibilities and desires. So
if you think that your current situation is any different than mine, you're wrong.
So she is the feminist in this movie. I knew there was going to be one. There had to be one. Especially in 2018, she is the defiant female character who resonates with Samson. It's interesting. She's comparing her enslavement, which she may be referencing her enslavement to the prince, but I think the idea here is that she's a woman who's enslaved to men. She has no freedom, and that his current predicament, being a Hebrew slave, is no different than her being a woman. I don't know how I feel about that being in this movie, but for what it's worth, that is the whole point of, in my opinion, that's the whole point of that particular line dialogue exchange.
The throne will be ours soon. My Delilah.
You remember how we said that we wouldn't have a lot of comments? Well, we were wrong.
Right. We're about to... There's a lot of things that we can say about this movie, and I'll keep most of them in the video. The biggest thing that we've noticed so far that is such a stretch from the Bible story is right here, this scene that we just saw, where apparently Delilah, I'm guessing that is going to be the eventual Delilah that Samson falls in love with, apparently is a princess, and not even the Bible knew that.
So, and what's interesting is, so this prince, Tobias, Justin and I kind of talked about this.
No, the prince isn't Tobias. The guy that the prince killed earlier was Tobias.
Oh, right, I'm sorry. The prince who killed Tobias. Backtracking. He's not mentioned in Samson's story either in the Bible, but, you know, for a conflict, it's understandable to have some sort of unknown, you know, enslaving prince. But this is to make the audience hate the prince even more. And it makes no sense to make her a princess, that he's stealing somebody else's wife. Samson did not do that. This is actually it's going to make his character look very bad to fall in love with somebody else's wife.
So we'll just have to see where the movie takes this. But in the Bible, in all stories that mention Delilah, she was not a princess.
She's just a Philistine woman.
Yeah, all it says was Samson fell in love with a Philistine woman.
So, here we go.
Your parents will not approve of this.
If you say yes, I will stop at nothing until they give me their blessing.
And yes.
Yes.
So I know it's a little bit different, but we're getting some real Braveheart vibes with this relationship.
I didn't know Samson was William Wallace. Getting a lot of walking through the woods, falling in love vibes going on. Now, it's very sweet. I think they're trying to put a lot more oomph into Samson's first wife than is actually in the Bible. A lot more attachment. To be perfectly honest and fair, in Samson's story, he sees a Philistine woman, she's real cute, and he goes to his parents and is like, I want to marry her and make it happen. That's the beginning, middle, and end of him meeting and getting with his first wife. There's a lot more to it here. It's very, very sweet. But this is not how it happens. And like Justin said, some serious Braveheart situations going on. We'll comment more on this if that is the route this goes.
You are my savior and my strength.
So I know what a lot of people are going to think when they read this part in the Bible or see the scene in the movie. This is very similar to Hercules from Greek mythology. He also kills a lion. I'll probably at some point make another video on detailing both of the accounts, but there are a lot of differences between the accounts. Really, the only similar things are that Hercules had an anger problem, like the Bible says that Samson was hot-headed sometimes, and they killed a lion. So that's the big parts. That's basically where the stories are the same. But trust me, there are a lot of differences, and maybe I'll get around to making a video about that.
God's not done with you. For years I pleaded with God. I asked him if you're truly the ones who deliver us all. For years I'd never hear anything. And then one night, I heard a still small voice. I looked around. I was certain someone had spoken words, but there was no one there. And then it happened again. A voice so clear, a voice with divine certainty that said, I would witness my brother free our people with the strength of his hands.
So in the story, the brother, which I'm sure Samson had, doesn't play a big role at all. And this scene where he receives 2 revelations from God definitely didn't happen in Judges, but I think they're kind of alluding to the revelation from God that his parents received, and since they didn't mention that already, they're having the brother have a similar thing. But in the Bible, the brother isn't mentioned at all, and he didn't have any kind of revelation from God like this.
And if they're going to include it at all, why not include it at the beginning of the story? Because that, and we talked about how Samson had no doubts about his destiny. He knew he'd become a judge. The fact that they withheld that until now almost like was done on purpose to instill the doubt that Samson's character in the movie has. But if they were going to have the prophecies at all, they should have just had them where they were, really. So.
And your father will be waiting for you.
So another thing that is different than how the Bible portrays it is the father of Samson is the scene that we saw before this, where Samson ties the torches to the fox's tails and they run through the fields. That's true. But then right after that, where they show Samson right here, where they capture his father and then Samson gives himself up and then they kill his father, that's not in the Bible at all. It's not mentioned once, where it doesn't talk about the father at all during any part of these scenes. So that's just one difference that the movie makes that the Bible doesn't have.
Also, we're pretty sure that when Samson's wife is killed, she's literally like, this is sad, super, super sad, but she's burned alive. She's not tossed into the field that is burning. Her father and herself are murdered by being burned alive. So that, again, the actual story is far
a little bit more brutal,
devastating than what they did here. And what happened in the movie was incredibly sad, but the actual story is even sadder. And, like Justin mentioned with the father, he doesn't have a very large role in the meat of the story. This is just to reinforce your empathy for Samson, I think. But the real story would have been better in a lot of ways. This just makes you feel sorry for Samson's situation. I'm sure it's going to be a redemptive factor for what he's going to do. So we'll just have to see how it goes.
So one thing the movie did differently, and this would be the end of Judges 15, I believe. After Samson kills the 1,000 Philistines, if we see right here, he looks down and there's a pool of water that was given by God. In the Bible, Samson prays to God, and then God gives him water. So it's a little bit different here, where the water is just there.
And I think it's done for a reason, that God knew he would be exhausted, and he's giving him water, and it's almost like he didn't have to say anything. But in terms of being biblically accurate, Samson, he's prayed this entire time. It would make no sense for him not to pray here, basically.
Pushed to the brink of starvation.
For years I have said our only hope is in peace.
Peace. Our share of the coming harvest can no longer feed us.
For years we have listened to you.
I just want to say this here. I think it's funny. This is not having anything to do with, biblical accuracy, but I think it's funny that they're indicating age by the fact that all of them now have beards and they were clean shaven as young men. They would have had, they were what, 20s or so?
Probably.
guys have beards in their 20s. I just think it's funny that that's how they're indicating age. Not graying hair, not, even a wife and children running around, nothing like that. It's just the beards. That's just really, really funny to me.
You will face the wrath of God.
So you threaten me with natural phenomenon, freakish acts, and the weather.
Mock me if you will.
There it is again, just like tons of other movies. More than likely, this king would have believed that God did all of these things. It's not how he just explained it. It was they were all theocratic societies. They all had God woven into everything.
And they really did believe that the Hebrews had a God, and that they had a separate God, but they believed that their God, or gods, depending on, the culture, were superior to the Hebrew God. So this would have been a valid threat, and he would have heeded it in some way. He wouldn't have just flat out mocked it.
Or he would have said, his God is stronger than Samson's God.
And would protect him from,
right,
such and such things, or instilled a worse punishment onto his people, Samson's people. So.
Never would have come here had you been honest about the sort of inn you run.
I must speak with you.
You're in the wrong room. Go back to your madam.
Samson, please. I've come here to warn you. You're in grave danger.
So I'm guessing that the movie is going to skip the part where Samson... I guess this part kind of alludes to it, but in the Bible, Samson does go and see a prostitute before he meets Delilah. And before this, in the movie, Delilah's been a part of everything. Samson hasn't met her yet, but she's been there. In the Bible, we just hear Delilah for the first time after Samson meets or goes into the prostitute.
Well, this would please you. To bind me and make me like any other man.
You can never be like any other man, bound or not.
Then tie me up with fresh ropes, ones that have never been used, and I will be like any other man. And you can take me wherever.
Why do you keep things from me?
Keep things from you?
Yes. You say you love me, but you refuse to share your innermost secrets.
What secrets?
The movie went straight to her asking Samson how to bind him, and Samson says if you get fresh rope that's never been used. That's the second time that he tells her this binding will work. So they skip the first one, and then the movie skips over her actually binding him and just straight to where she doesn't believe, or she knows that won't bind him and that he was lying. So that's one difference between Judges and the movie. In the book, she binds Samson. Every time he says that something will bind him, she actually does it and then says, hey, look, the Philistines are here, and then he breaks the bindings.
3 vows were bestowed upon me. No wine, no touching the dead, no cutting of my hair. I've broken 2 of them. If I were to cut my hair, I fear my strength would leave me.
So the movie also skips over the third binding that she does and goes straight from the fresh ropes all the way to, if you cut my hair, then I lose my strength.
He alludes to, I've already broken these other 2 vows. If I break this third vow, I'm going to lose my strength, or I fear I'm going to lose my strength. In Judges, he just says, if you cut my hair, I'll lose my strength.
Samson's little brother.
Naturally, since the movie added the brother in at the beginning, he would come in this part as well. But in the book, like I said earlier, the brother really has no part. And in this part never happened. It's Samson gets his hair cut, and then he gets taken by the Philistines, and then the brother never shows up because he's not in the story. But so that's another difference. So in the Bible, this is all happening in Judges 16 from in the movie, when he wakes up from being shot with the arrows and he meets Delilah. That would be the start of Judges 16. After Delilah cuts Samson's hair and they take him and gouge his eyes out, in the movie it's showing that she feels really guilty about it, and we can see here that she's crying. In the Bible, after she gives him up to the Philistines, we don't hear from her again, so there's really no knowing if she felt guilty or if she believed in what she was doing. I would probably go on the side that she knew what she was doing and she did it willingly, being a Philistine, and she wanted to do it.
And even if, she felt any amount of guilt, like let's say, it doesn't say this in the Bible, but let's say she really loved Samson and that her life was in danger and that they were threatening her. So, taking away his strength, which not only protects him but protects his people, and having it make to where his eyes are gouged out and he's enslaved, you really shouldn't care about her as a character in a story, because she did something truly awful, not just to Samson, but she left his people defenseless. Even if he wasn't there, he was always there as a protector that they could call on if they needed him. She did a horrible thing, so I feel no remorse to her as a character, even if she does feel bad. And they're also indicating payment, when payment was never something that they mentioned in the Bible.
Since I've been watching this movie, I get a strong Jesus-Judas vibe from the New Testament, and I feel like, we know PureFlix is a Christian organization. I feel like they're kind of alluding to Jesus and Judas here, because we saw in a scene earlier that she's laying on the ground with payment and she's forgiving over Samson and she's now regretting it. Same as Judas received his payment and then later regretted turning over Jesus. So there's been a few times where I kind of sensed a Jesus vibe here.
And the symbology is really well done. It's very, very faint. If you're a Christian, you've read the Bible, like Justin said, you'll definitely see it. I've thought about that as well throughout the movie. But if we're being accurate, this is all assumed. Doesn't necessarily, we can't say it doesn't happen, but we can't say definitively that it does, that she felt remorse or that she received payment.
I'm here to free you and your brother. All you must do is tell me how I may receive your power.
So, he is a made-up character, purely for conflict, but nobody sought Samson's power in the story. I'm really not sure why they chose to do this, other than just making him an even more evil character. But this is not accurate whatsoever. Nobody was trying to steal Samson's power. Even if they were, there's no way that God would have given them his power. It's not like Highlander, where you kill the other Highlander and then you absorb his power and there can only be one. That's not how this works. So that's not accurate either.
And all they were seeking in the Bible, all the Philistines were seeking, was to take Samson's power away from him, not to give it to their leader. So that's one difference.
Right.
So it looks like they've decided to bring Delilah back, even though her story is finished by this point in the Bible. They just keep bringing her back for more. So I don't know why the movie wants Samson to have her as a permanent, real love interest, but that's not biblical, and she's done at this point. She's never mentioned again.
Also, it goes without saying that the previous scene where the prince kills his father is also not biblically accurate. I don't know why they put all of this extra stuff in. Delilah as a character is not redeemable. She took away Samson's strength, so this is purely for dramatics, I think. The character's trying to redeem herself, but that's nowhere in the Bible.
With the power God has placed within you, He has not abandoned me, Caleb, because I am in these chains. Even inside these walls, I hear His call. And maybe for the first time, I am hearing His desires and not my own.
I think I know the purpose of the brother now. The brother is the physical connection that Samson has to God. You know, the constant reminder of God's prophecy, that God is not done with him. That is the physical embodiment of his connection with God. You know, so as Samson just said here, I've heard him talking for the first time in a long time, or ever, I think he said. So I think that's the purpose of the brother. It's not biblically accurate, but from a standpoint of a audience member who's watching the movie, it does a good job of reminding you the brother constantly being there as a source of inspiration, of motivation for Samson and for the people. It's a good choice from a movie perspective.
Yeah, this is real Jesus allusions here, because as far as I can remember, Samson is never strung up and whipped. He's tied between the two pillars like he is right here, but he's not whipped. And just the whole scene where he enters through the crowd, and we see his brother Caleb, who is like Peter.
And Delilah, who is probably either Mary, his mother, or Mary Magdalene, following close behind.
So now we are Christians. We believe that Jesus is the Messiah and that his story in the New Testament is true. But I don't get any kind of messianic prophecies from Samson personally. When I read through it, I think that the movie creators are kind of just alluding to Jesus right here.
Also, it's important to note, as a Christian, that Samson was not without sin. Jesus was without sin. He was the perfect person because he was a god, or the god. So I think it's very important to note that while Samson is the judge of the Hebrew people, and that he did a lot of good things for them, he is not without sin, and he is not Jesus. I think that's important to note.
God had at long last chosen a Hebrew king.
So I hope you all enjoyed this video. That was the Samson movie that came out in 2019. Now I'll go ahead and review it, and then you can give your thoughts.
Okay.
So, as far as a movie goes, I thought that was a pretty darn good movie. I'd probably rate it a 6 or 7 out of 10. And as far as biblically accurate goes, I would probably rate that a 4 out of 10, just because they had the basic story of Samson there, but they added a lot of things. And I'm not even talking about adding the evil king, because there has to be some antagonist. Even the Bible talks about the Philistine rulers right there, so they had to add him in there. But what they did with Delilah, and then the whole thing where she's there throughout the beginning of the movie, and then he meets, and then she's still there at the end, and she does sort of a Judas thing, and just overall, it's much more biblically accurate than the Noah movie with Russell Crowe or the Exodus movie with Christian Bale, but it's less accurate than the Joseph King of Dreams or the Prince of Egypt, which all 4 of those I already reviewed on here. So overall, it was a pretty good movie, but middle ground with biblically accurate.
I would agree. It was a great movie. I mean, I was very impressed with the quality. The acting was great. The guy who they got to play Samson, really, really liked him.
Yeah, me too.
Even Delilah, the actress, beautiful, which they describe her in the Bible as being beautiful. So I think it's spot on as far as, the acting is concerned. I agree with pretty much everything that Justin said. They really embellished a lot of the things in the story. There was so much they left out that would have made it even more exciting. And it's a very brutal, Samson's story is very brutal, and it's sad and impactful in a lot of different ways. It absolutely alluded to Jesus and Judas. I think the reason why Delilah was there from the beginning to the end is because they wanted you to know who she was, and why it was such a big deal that she betrayed, that she betrayed Samson at the end. Kind of similar. I'd probably give it a 6 or a 7. biblically accurate, about a 3 or a 4. I think that it's an injustice to leave out some of the stuff in there that was really important. I also think it's interesting how far from being biblically accurate it was, considering it's a PureFlix film. I really we went in saying, oh, we're not going to have a lot to say. This is going to be a short video. But no, they really took a turn when they introduced Delilah's character. Up until that point, other than the introduction of the brother, which, again, I think it had a purpose, just like the king. It absolutely had a purpose. You needed a physical connection to God in the movie. I get it. Burning Bush and Prince of Egypt is a great example, even though that's in the Bible. But yeah, I mean, we hope you guys enjoyed it. We want to do more of these. I'm not going to be in every one, although I know you guys are going to want me to be in every one. But we love making these. Justin loves making these.
So one thing I do want to mention about the movie, I'm a really big fan of war movies, especially medieval, ancient war movies. I love Troy, I love Braveheart, I love Gladiator. This movie, I loved how accurate and brutal the fight scenes were when Samson had the Spirit of God within him. And I loved how they did that in the movie, and I liked how brutal that was because it was more realistic. And honestly, I thought they were pretty cool fight scenes.
Oh, yeah, no, the actor, again, did a great job. The effects were small, and I think that that's good because I don't think they have a budget of a big Hollywood movie, so I think the little effects that they did were really great. There was little to no CGI or green screening in this movie, which was great, and if there was more, we couldn't really tell a lot of the parts. But let us know what you guys think. Do you think it was biblically accurate? What did you think of the movie? What did you think of the commentary? Like and subscribe, and
yeah, and check us out on our website. It is whoislikeyouministries.org, and then our Twitter @whoislikeyoumin, and our YouTube, Who Is Like You Ministries. If you enjoyed this video, like she said, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll be sure to make more of these. I know I haven't done a Bible video in a while. I'm trying to do a lot more, and we're also going to be keeping up with our hiking part of the channel. We do love doing those videos because we get to go out and hike and share that part with everyone. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This has been Justin and Kaylin from Who Is Like You Ministries, and have a great day.